Bartenders of Reddit, your job is to get us intoxicated. What are some of the worst decisions you've seen patrons make while drinking at your establishment? Possibly NSW. I work in a busy Manhattan bar. There are a lot of bad, drunken decisions made every weekend at my bar. The worst in recent memory was probably a few weeks ago when this guy was sitting at one of the benches near the bar on a busy Friday night, and by around 11:30 he and his girlfriend were both pretty drunk. Apparently he couldn't wait to get home, or I suppose she might not have been able to wait either, because in clear view of everyone, she starts going down on him. Trying to be clandestine, he covers her with a winter coat. It wasn't particularly effective. One of the servers was the first to notice and we went to kick the guy out. As security made their way through the crowd, I tried to tell him he's got to leave, but he was adamant about finishing. He was dragged out, pants around his ankles, with his girlfriend trying to blow him the whole way to the door. She's a keeper. This is both the worst and best decision this guy ever made. Was working at a bar about a year ago, and it was one of the quieter weeknights, so nothing crazy huge, more time to talk to patrons. This guy is sitting at the bar, and already a little tipsy, talking about this girl in the bar he doesn't know, but would like to get with. He was asking us for tips on how to go talk to her, etc. After a while of this, he builds up the courage to just go buy this girl a drink. It works. He's chuffed. They're sitting together for a couple of hours. He's getting more and more plastered, and everything seems to be going well. He returns to the bar for another round. This is about an hour before closing, and is now asking how he can get out of this. She's really into him, but he finds her really annoying. Our response? Sit back down at the table and start making trumpet noises. However, pretend like nothing is happening. Don't acknowledge it. Don't smile. Just trumpet noises. The guy went back with his drinks, and I crap you not, made trumpet noises for about 5 minutes straight until the girl got weirded out and left. He came back the happiest man alive, and bought us all shots. Possibly the best thing I witnessed while working there. Ah yes, the Miles Davis. Difficult maneuver. Few who attempt it succeed. Used to tend bar a couple years back. A guy came in and he was very well dressed. Ordered a drink and was waiting for a friend. A lady walks in. The guy has dinner with her, drinks, the whole 9 yards. Then he makes out with her and crap gets heavy. He leaves with her, and about 20 minutes later comes back. He sits down, orders a drink, and says he is waiting for someone. Mind you, he is still wearing the same clothes. He catches a glimpse of himself in the mirror, hits our bathroom, I'm assuming to freshen up, and comes back. In walks another lady. He has dinner with her, drinks more, and starts making out with her. Completely ridiculous, and my co-bartender and I are in awe. Well, we bring him the check and he is pretty smashed. He says, I already paid this. Look, I have the receipt. Tell M. Linda. His lady friend looks at him and says, I'm Brittany silly. She takes the receipt, looks at it, and the time is from 2 hours earlier. Throws a whole glass of red wine at him and walks out. I've heard of double dating, but this is ridiculous. A guy falls asleep at the bar, so I tell his friends that he has to go. They say no problem, but they need help getting him into the car. So I pick him up and basically carry him to their car. While the friend goes to the driver's side, the guy sobers up enough to stand and looks me in the eye and asks, is my dong hanging out? I reluctantly look down and say no. He says, well, it better be, cause I'm pissin'. His friends just put him in the car and come back inside and keep drinking. About 2 hours later, Sleepy Pee Pants comes back into the bar with asphalt burns all over his head, hands, arms, yelling about some black guys that jumped him. We checked the surveillance footage, and the black guys ended up being the parking lot. He stumbled his way out of the vehicle onto the pavement and proceeded to fight the parking lot. He lost. We all won. I wish I had saved that footage. Fight Club. A buddy had a drunken hookup a girl that didn't want to leave the next morning, so they spent the weekend together. He was convinced that this girl was really into him, but the next weekend when we went out, a bartender who recognized her informed me that she was essentially homeless and had a reputation for going home dudes from the downtown bars and bumming off them for as long as possible. Wish we would have known that earlier. This actually made me really sad. I used to bartend at a pizza place. We'd get crazy busy after the other bars began to close and people came to us to soak up the alcohol. We did most of our business selling slices out of a window kept constantly at about 180 degrees. One night a man, who was apparently on quite a few substances, had just gotten a slice from our window. In the middle of the crowded restaurant, he shrieked, "This pizza's ice cooled," and then to prove his point, slapped the slice against his face repeatedly. Halloween 2010. In Vegas nightclubs they have people walk around taking pictures of club goers for local magazines. So I am working the bar and a group of girls is about to get their picture taken from a super drunk photographer dressed as a S-pirate. The lady gets them all to pose and starts to count to 3. By the time she got to 2 she turns around and hauls butt down the hallway. As she is running you can see that she is crapping as she is running. It was all over the place. People start screaming because they see her crapping everywhere, so my manager starts walking towards the commotion. He doesn't see the crap on the floor, takes 2 steps and slips. He falls down in the lady's crap and then throws up because he realizes he is covered in someone else's fesses. It was horrible because I like the guy, but I can't help but laugh whenever I tell this story. This literally just happened about 2 hours ago. Girl at the bar is dipping tobacco and using an empty shot glass as a spit cup. Drunk dude walks up next to the girl and she is talking to her friends, not paying attention to the guy. Dude looks at the cup and I guess thinks someone left a shot of Jaeger at the bar. Well, needless to say, he grabs the cup and downs it. I try to warn him but it was too late. He looks at me and walks away as if nothing happened. Click turns around to grab her cup and I tell her what happened. She just starts laughing and asks for another cup. Looks like she was swabbing the poop deck. I'm a Chili's bartender, so it doesn't usually get too rowdy or anything. But this one time a man and woman were both there alone separately. Eventually they started talking to each other and the man kept ordering shots. The man paid for both tabs and left. The woman stayed and ordered a beer, and then told me that she had to use the restroom. So I reserved her spot. After about 45 minutes, I asked a server to check the restroom because I was worried that she may have gotten sick or something. Turns out that the man came back inside through the to-go door, and they were having sex in the restroom. Sex in a Chili's restroom. Now that's classy. Black coffee mixed with bottom shelf vodka and a belly full of tofu. He had the look. The one someone gets on their face when they're using every ounce of focus not to boot everywhere. It wasn't long before he put his hand over his mouth and made a puke sprinkler, showering the majority of the room in gut funk. It was glorious from where I was standing. Once it was over, the carnage actually looked like just tofu and soy sauce. I can no longer consume either, but I do drink coffee frequently. This was only about 5 months ago, but there was a social going on and a couple getting married were cops. Of course all of their friends that were cops that weren't on duty that night were there. Many friends and families were invited that weren't members of the police, so there was a nice mix of company. One guy, not a cop, I kept serving all night, kept mentioning that the bride-to-be was his ex and that he did not deserve to get dumped years ago. He's on his 9th or 10th beer now and he's drunk as heck. Stumbling all over the place and pee other people off, but it's a social so many others are looking the same. Suddenly he got the idea in his head that he was going to win back his ex by kicking the crap out of her husband-to-be. He starts running from one end of the room and at this point, people notice that he's running towards the main table. Out of nowhere, the best man, about 6'6", 275 pounds, clotheslines him right in the middle of the room and the remainder of the wedding party jump on him. Of course, he's kicked out and brought to the drunk tank by more cops. I'd like to imagine what was going through his mind to try something like that at a social full of cops. Some people. I've never understood the mentality of people who keep their exes around, let alone invite them to their freaking wedding. This middle-aged guy used to come in and drink with a younger girl a couple times a month. They were a little socially awkward with others and also had a really weird relationship and we couldn't figure it out. We later found out he was her father, but it was seriously the strangest father-daughter relationship I have ever seen. When she decided she was done drinking, she would try to order a soda and he would force her to get another drink. Like, no, get her a hurricane right now or else kind of thing. Anyways, On the night of a UFC fight he got so drunk he was walking around the bar creeping out the patrons and ended up throwing up all over himself in front of a family and had to get escorted out by the police, and his daughter was running after him, crying her eyes out. I never saw them there again. I never serve a drink that the person doesn't order. Jetamanatha's Manhattan. He is a P basically means no one is getting another drink. Especially when it's a man ordering for a reluctant woman. No bueno. Last night, often a crappy night to work behind the bar in the UK, a guy trying to impress two chicks ordered 3 bottles of our most expensive champagne and paid on card. He asked us to open all 3, then changed his mind and asked us to keep 2 open bottles in the fridge for later, and then took one over to the ladies who were all over him like a rash. He was already so pee that he forgot about the other 2 bottles. At the end of the night, he took one of girls home and left without reminding us of the other bottles. So, not wanting to waste any champagne, my 2 bar buddies and I proceeded to drink 2 magnums, seeing as they were already paid for, whilst cleaning up the bar, and had a great night. Never saw the guy again, but thanks, you made our night. Group of college kids comes into our strip bar. That same night, the other bartender had made Jaeger bombs and vodka Red Bull the cheap drink specials. So this one kid, the tallest and goofiest looking one, white dude, 6 feet 6 inches with a huge afro but lanky as heck, takes a jajabum shot with his buddies and immediately pukes it back up. He tries to throw it back up into the cup he drank it from. Pro tip, it doesn't work, but ended up puking on the floor in front of the garbage can. Not in the fricking can. Dude stumbles his way over to the stage like a cartoon giraffe on roller skates and pulls out his ones to tip the dancer as if nothing happened. Guy pulls out what I'd guess to be $40 in ones, counts them out as he drops them onto the stage. He yells, "WHOOO," puts one foot up on stage and then instantly passes out. Stumbles his way over to the stage like a cartoon giraffe on roller skates. Awesome visualization. A long time ago, early 90s, I worked in Japan behind a bar in Roppongi, Tokyo called the Pineapple Club. It was about the time the first Steven Seagal movie came out, and some American kid who had been studying Aikido for about 5 weeks was totally hammered, even before he came into the bar, and decided he was up to the task of taking the pee out of some US Marines who were on a bar crawl up from Yokohama. I offered to throw him out, but they laughed him off, saying it wasn't really a problem. But this guy just kept getting more and more annoying. Just before tea got to the point where I had to do something about it, he decides to karate chop the smallest guy amongst the Marines, smallest being a relative term. The guy just turned to look at the swaying mess mouthing off beside him, turned back to his beer and without even looking smacked him in the solar plexus. His mates picked him up off the floor, took him to a corner table, and he spent the rest of his evening sat among a bunch of Marines, too terrified to even leave. There's something funny about someone getting their butt kicked at a place called the Pineapple Club. I was bartending for a large private party for my district manager and his friends. It was an open bar and everyone was wasted, including said manager. Now, he was there with his wife. She was off mingling with guests and he comes to the bar with a very drunk blonde trashy H-type and tells me to give her whatever she wanted, even the top shelf, and just give him the bill. All the while he's feeling her up and kissing her neck and she's just eating this up. She ended up drinking at least half my bottle of Grey Goose and reminding me every time that she's on Dan's tab. Hahe. So later on I see Dan pulling her into the back to the walk-in cooler, and about 30 minutes later, slinking back into the throng of drunk partygoers. Probably thought he was so slick. He wasn't. I kinda felt bad for the wife until one of the girls that was cocktail waitressing tells me how she just saw wifey on her knees in the women's restroom with some random dude, slurping noises and all. Can I just remind everyone that this was at the restaurant he managed and was somewhat a classy affair. It was a Chili's. During dinner service, one side of the restaurant was designated for this party of maybe 100 people. The other side was normal patrons. I don't know if it was open marriage situation or what, but I do know that we were all threatened by our store managers that if anyone talked about it, it would be our jobs. I always knew Chili's was a high quality place. Forward, at our bar, we had a bouncer named Isaiah. Isaiah is 6 minutes and 11 seconds and a very solid and in shape 280-300 pounds. He's also trained in various martial arts since he was a kid. Despite all of this, he is probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Actual story. On a night that was particularly heavy with Jager bombs and bros, we had one young gentleman who was getting rather rowdy and loud with people. Isaiah walks over, tries to talk to him, offers him a bottle of water to calm him down. Out of nowhere, bro takes a swing at Isaiah. In one quick and graceful movement that any ballerina would be proud of, Isaiah manages to grab and keep hold of his fist while grabbing the other arm with the same hand. Isaiah then lifts him up and throws him over his shoulder and neck, and proceeds to take him out of the bar in the same way a hunter would carry a deer. He takes him outside, sets him down and apparently looked him in the eyes and said, "Go." Nice of him to do that. Most bouncers would have made a mess of that. Told this story in another thread, but I think it fits here too. Back in like 2001 I was a bartender at an Applebee's in Morehead City, NC. One night this total redneck, long hair, scruffy beard, comes in, sits at the bar, and after I give him a few beers I notice he's annihilated. Must have been drinking before, so I cut him off. He's not happy with this, but rules are rules, so whatever. Anyways, I go to the bathroom and on the way back hear the barback, who was this tiny girl, yelling at him to stop. He has gone behind the bar and is trying to pry the cash register open with a spoon. I confront him and tell him to knock it off or I'm calling the cops, and he says go ahead, call the freaking cops. It's a free country. So I phone the police and they show up about 5 minutes later. So the cops show up. At this point he was back on the other side of the bar, and ask him for his id. You want to see my id, he yells, and takes off his wife beater. He's got an enormous tattoo of a bald eagle with the American flag behind it on his chest, and he points to it and yells at the cops, "There's my freaking id. That good enough for ya? USA USA." He seriously started chanting that, so the cops promptly walk him out. The end. Or so I thought. A few hours later, after I had closed out the place, I start walking back to my apartment and I see his butt driving around in the parking lot. He sees me, pulls up, and says, "Hey, I lost $1 and I am trying to find IT. Have you seen $1 anywhere?" I could not believe the dude was driving, and still to this day have no idea how the heck the cops let him go. I only worked there for another month or so, but I never saw the dude again. I have seen a man vomit into a half-full drink. After a quick look around to see if anyone has seen, he chugs the rest of his drink. This kind of dedication to finishing your drink is rare. Bravo. Bavarian prick bear hugging an unsuspecting tiny Indian man for no apparent reason whilst singing what appeared to be a German folk song. I bartend, but I also wait tables and occasionally work the door. The place I worked at had 3 separate entrances. Late one night one of the hostesses came up to me and pointed out a very intoxicated bro struggling with the door, which was a pull door, but he insisted on pushing. He came in and ordered a drink, but shortly thereafter the bartender signaled to me that she can't serve him, so I went over and asked him politely to leave. Surprisingly, he also politely acknowledged his intoxicated state and rose to leave, exiting the same way he came in. I watched him to make sure he was okay, but I noticed he was simply making his way to our other entrance farther down the street. Upon entering, I again told him that he'd had too much to drink already and that he should make his way home. Again, he smiles and thanks me, and sloppily wishes me a good evening, and walks out. This time I watch him intently, only to see him, to my dismay, make his way to our third entrance, which is around the corner. This time I was slightly more agitated, as he now has the attention of half of the diners and most of the staff. I meet him at the door, and as he pulls it open, I step out, blocking his entry. The conversation went something like this. Me: "Listen man, you need to move along. This is the 3rd time I've had to ask you to go. If you don't cooperate I'll have no choice but to have you arrested." Him: Whoa, bro, I just want a beer, but hey, it is what it is. No police, I'll leave. And he turned to leave, but then he paused and whipped around and dropped an absolute gem. "Yo dude, lemme ask you something. How many freaking bars do you work at anyway?" I love the total lack of malice in this story. Had a 21st being held in the outdoor area of our club. I was supervisor and I'm told by another employee that there was a stripper wanting to know where she can get changed. One look at her and you can tell she doubles as a H. She must have been about 40 and had a face like a smashed crab that not all the semen in the world could de-wrinkle. We were not given any notification that there would be a stripper, mainly because it was organized by the birthday boy himself last minute. At first I said it was not happening, given that the establishment is a family venue. But after some persuading I was convinced to let it go ahead provided the guests at the party huddled around close so that the show was not visible to other guests. So at the center of the huddle was the stripper doing her thing on a chair, dripping candle wax all over her body. Then, Mr. Dayboy gets down and eats the candle wax out of her pee with all his friends and family standing around. It still makes me want to vomit. I'll never forget the look on the face of one woman who left the party to come into the bar, saying I've known him since he was in nappies. Not everything with a wax seal is fresh. Worked in a bar in Bermuda. I watched a rugby player trying to get his teammates' attention climb up on the bar and do a full jump to crowd surf on them. They weren't paying attention. He landed flat on his face, breaking his nose and losing 4 teeth. Best part is his teammates didn't see him and walked off leaving him lying there in agony. They were Australian if that explains. Might as well contribute to former co-worker tended bar like a mother. This guy was unflappable. He dealt with drunks, people who crap themselves, crowds, annoying young people, people with fake IDs, you name it. He took care of it with a look of serenity on his face. One night a Marine had gotten a bit too rowdy. He'd been shoulder checking anyone who got in his way, yelling at the top of his lungs for his orders, and expecting patrons to pick up his tab since he was serving his country. Don't even get me started on how he would bang on his table, the jukebox, or the wooden walls whenever he was feeling the slightest bit irritated. Well, bartenders had enough the bar's quieting down aside from GI, jerk off, so he calls out, "Excuse me, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're disrespectful to my establishment and my patrons." The Marine glares up like my buddy's name is Bin Laden and storms up to the bar. Butthole, I got 8 years of fricking service. 8 fricking years by this time. I'm sitting at the bar, watching how this is going to play out. Buddy is taking it as this guy is spitting out every word. The Marine puts one of those ham fists on my shoulder, trying to use me as an example. Some little B right here wouldn't last 2 fricking minutes where I was. I'm irritated, and so is my buddy, who offers him a plastic cup full of water for the road, but he's not having it. I got 3 goddamn commendations for sniping and service in the fricking Middle East, now forming a pile of drool on the bar. What are you got? Bartender, cool as a fricking cucumber in January, reaches down and produces a small, leather wallet. He opens it and looks between the two. "Are you, name? Gimme my wallet." He's flustered and looking to get violent. "Well, name, what I've got is the number of your company." Marine goes pale as a ghost and makes a quick escape from the bar. I'd never seen someone shut the frick up so quickly, and never had more respect for my buddy. If you're Redding, Todd, keep being completely awesome at whatever you do. I'm still not sure if the Marine came to pick his wallet up. On the first day working at a bar, I am walking in, and something goes flying past my head. As I am trying to figure out what it was, the day bartender begins to scream, "Greg, no fricking way, not again." I am not even finding at this time what the frick is it. Turns out there is a day regular that, when he feels he is not getting enough attention, whips out his glass eyeball and hucks it at the bartender. So, glass eyes are pricey, couldn't find the dang thing. So Greg comes in every day, gaping eye hole, depressed to drink. I sweep it up a good 6 months later. I didn't clean it and I taped it to the men's room door, so it'd stare at you as you went in. Apparently Greg just pulled it off the door and popped the thing right back in. Going home with a cougar manda might seem like a great decision. Age does not always define quality, especially after he feeds you booze for the past 4 hours. What else? I can elaborate on this, if wanted. Picking fights with dudes with crutches may seem like a great idea. I mean, they are crippled, right? Pussies. Number. They have 2 long metal weapons to put you in your place. I work in a classy joint. Makes me wish I had a spare eyeball to chunk around when I am displeased. I work in a strip club. This customer was over the top drunk, started grabbing the girls and cussed out the bartender. I'm a cocktail waitress. Once kicked out, he noticed someone had stolen his bicycle. He called the cops 4 times to report it, and each time the dispatcher told him he would have to report it in the morning because it was midnight on a Thursday and they don't send police cars for petty theft at that time of night. He then decided to call 911 again, only this time he reported a brawl in the parking lot. The cops showed up. Clearly there was no brawl. He started babbling about his bike and was arrested for public intoxication and falsely reporting the brawl. This guy was at the bar when I was in college. He was very highbrow rude and kept snapping his fingers at me to order his drinks and telling me I made his drinks wrong. No biggie, people are particular, so I didn't mind, just did my best and tried to get around to all the other guests. This very attractive woman came over to the bar and asked me if I was getting pee at the butthole and sweater vest. I told her that he was just slowing me down when it come to getting to other people. He at this point stepped up to me and asked me if I was trained by the blind because anyone with sight would be able to make his drink better than this. The girl steps in and starts flirting with him, touching his arm, calling him sexy and how he's making her hot. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. At this moment the girl's friend comes over. She was beyond amazing looking and asked her friend who the handsome man she's with is. At this point I'm about to break a bottle over my head in disbelief that an butthole like this can attract 2 amazing women. Anyway, the sleaze that he is tries to get them to make out. They start teasing him and letting him touch both of them all over the place. At this point he bought them a few drinks, each of the priciest liqueur we had at the bar. They tell him to pay the bill so they can all go somewhere private for some fun. I give him the bill and it's a bit high, but he doesn't say anything. He takes out some cash to pay and leaves me $1 tip. The girls notice and call him cheap. Of course he decides to show he isn't, so he leaves me a $100 tip. Before they leave I ask the first girl why him. He was such a tool and a jerk, why would she be attracted to him? She looks at me and smiles. I'm not attracted to him. We're prostitutes. She winks at me and they leave the bar. I notice this giant of a man following them outside who I assumed was their pimp. TL. DR. Money, hose and liqueur. What more do you need? Liqueur. I was working at this resort in Laguna Beach, California, around Christmas time. We were a resort, so the bar opened at 7 in the morning. Right at 7, this heavy set lady comes in the restaurant and comes right up to my bar, asks for a cocktail and a shot. I figured, while this girl is getting her vacation started early, so I go back to setting up the final things behind my bar, and before I know it, the lady has taken the shot and was slurping down the last of the cocktail like she was a kid with a milkshake. I walk right over to her and start joking with her that it is 7 in the morning, and she sure did finish her beverages fast, but she jokes around with me back, making her seem very coherent. A crap ton of filthy right people come there to drink all day every day, so I'm not too inclined to question people. She calmly orders a Long Island stiff and tasty. As she is gulping down the new drink, my manager starts to take concern. We both head to where she is sitting at and start asking her friendly questions. How is your stay? At which condo are you staying at? Her intoxication is becoming very noticeable now. It is so bad. My manager is visibly annoyed with me that I didn't catch it sooner. Freaking crazy thing is we figure out she is not staying at the resort, and she admits she is from the lavish drug and rehab center down the street. Horrible place for one, wouldn't you think? Freaking rich people, lol. So my manager orders her a cab and demands I help her out. Made you. She is 200 to 300 pounds and I'm a little 160 pounds kid, 22 at the time. So I go around the bar to help this lady get from the bar to the cab, and Kona of the resort walks into my bar. Immediately when she first tries to get up from the bar, I know we are in trouble. Her left foot in on the upper step of the bar, wobbling like mad. As she lifts her right foot down to step away from the bar, her right knee never locks and she goes down. All her weight hits me dead center as I try to grab her and stop her from falling. She tumbles back while I hold us upright for 2 or 3 steps, but I lose the battle. We crash down right into a 10-foot Christmas tree, sending all the presents flying and the ornaments shattering while the tree crashes down. All the staff is looking at us. The owner, his lackeys, the manager, the cook, and a server, and the big fat lady starts laughing for maybe 5 seconds and then the puking starts. She starts moaning and puking all over the floor right next to the downed Christmas tree. Worst experience of my life as a bartender. And before anyone asks, no, I didn't get fired. I bartend at a sizable, private country club. On Friday nights, we have a group of 40-50-year-old parents come in. You know, the trophy wives with the alcoholic husbands. Now, I didn't know this the first week, but they're all swingers. I found out essentially by thinking Mrs. Ziz, why are you sitting on Mr. ABC's lap and kissing him before coming to the realization? Anyway, one night, a couple came in that wasn't a part of the normal group. They started drinking and getting along with the others, and before I knew it, the wife was making out with one of the swinger husbands. Her husband saw, walked over, and punched the guy square in the jaw. It quickly degenerated into a fight, and I had to kick them both out. This was a couple of weeks ago, and the last I heard, the couple that came in later was getting a divorce. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.